Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media.co, an Inc. 500 company delivering the power of hyperlocal advertising. Robert writes for Forbes, Inc., and ad trade publications. Our goal is to bring you the stories about successes and failures of people who are making big things happen in marketing, entrepreneurship, and management.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today we are recording live from the Social Media Marketing World Summit Conference Extraordinaire, and we have two guests. We have Jim Cunningham and Nick Cunningham. Tell us about yourselves, and I want to talk about growth and scale and building business.
Well, my name's Jim Cunningham, and I am the guy behind Cunningham Legal. We are a law firm in California. We have grown from just me 25 years ago to now 9 attorneys and about 30 staff and 10 offices in California. We have locations in the capital region, in the Sacramento area, and then 4 locations there, and then in the Southern California, 6 locations, well, 5, and then 1 in the East Bay, San Francisco Bay Area. And so what our law firm does is living trusts. So we help people set up their estate plan, we plan their will and their trust. We have a lot of business owner clients. We help people save taxes. We help people when they sell a business. So your basic personal and corporate transactional side. And then we also help people when they, when it's time to inherit and you got to go through all that stuff you go through when someone passes away. It's not easy. I mean, on a lot of levels, right? Personally, obviously, of course, sometimes not, right? I mean, sometimes they're really glad the person's finally gone. I guess it depends, but this
is not funny.
But we help them through that process. And one really big area that's totally overlooked is incapacity. So what happens if you get sick and you can't take care of yourself anymore? If you're a business owner and you have a stroke, what happens? Like, people don't think about that.
So literally that happened to someone who I'm familiar with. Poor guy just died.
Oh, yeah.
So lots of people trying to figure out what happens next.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and we like to take it, sometimes we like to take the point of view of the person who's inheriting, because this is a journey that they have to go through. Yeah. So not only do you have the sense of typically, deep loss and, losing your parents in many cases, but then you have to go through all these steps. And unfortunately, it's very complicated, very confusing, and it really does take an expert. And the book that is ranked in the low 30s on LinkedIn is my book, is Savvy Estate Planning, what you need to know before you visit with the right lawyer, which is a primer on thinking about all of the issues that you have to think about before you go to the lawyer's office. So going to the lawyer's office is step 4 of 5, and then there are 3 steps before step 4 that you have to go through before you even go to the lawyer's office. Because, newsflash, the lawyer doesn't know you. You know your family, and you really need to think about a lot of these things before you even go to the lawyer's office.
My name's Nick Cunningham. I'm a musician and content creator from Los Angeles, and really excited to be here at the Social Media Marketing World 2020.
So now there's 2 things, right? Like you have the Cunningham legal element, and you have the content creation marketplace that you guys are developing. So which one do you want to start with first? Which is like, I want to talk about growth and scale. So let's talk about Cunningham legal.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, costs on Facebook are going up. Marketing is becoming ever more complex, and there's so many different disciplines that focus in on digital marketing, and so many different types of things you can do just like on one platform, like on Facebook. You can advertise, you can have a chat bot, you do content creation, you can do live videos. Like, I imagine, I feel like there's this element of crazy. Like, I don't know what to do. There's so much opportunity. How do you discern what works for your business and what doesn't? And how does Cunningham Legal grow?
Well, we have grown in the past by acquisition, meaning we've had 16 acquisitions of law firms since 2003. And what happens is a lawyer will practice for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, sometimes longer. And then they will finally raise their hand and say, I'm done. And then for example, the last firm we acquired, the retiring lawyer was 95 years old. That's really old.
He has some seniority.
Yes, he did. He was, and actually, well, long story, but yes, he was really old. And finally, he says, I'm done. And so what we've done is we've helped a lot of those lawyers exit the law practice. So one method of growing is through acquisition. Another method of growth is through, obviously, through demand generation, through marketing efforts. Honestly, I think the best way to market is word of mouth, but that's really, really, really hard. And I mean, frankly, that's the highest conversion is word of mouth.
Sure. And it's like, one of the things I've developed in my mind over the years, and it's not just me, it's all, my colleagues in the marketing profession and advertising profession. It's like referrals are fantastic. There's a limited number of them because there's only so many humans you can connect with.
Exactly. And I think once you exhaust that resource, then you start looking at what's the most effective way to advertise. And it used to be, especially for professionals, it used to be, well, I can be in the yellow pages or the newspaper, television, billboards, that I suppose. But it was very limited. It was very kind of a small space. And now it's infinity. It's infinite. It's a fractured environment. What do you do? I think you really need an expert on this. Now you can do some of this stuff on your own, but if you're busy, I think you really do need to engage a professional because it's just you can't eat the whole elephant. You need people to help you with that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was reminded, I just saw a post on LinkedIn. What's your opinion on, so in LA, there's Sweet James. Have you seen Sweet James?
Yeah.
Like the billboard advertising for the out of home advertising for, I don't know what type of lawyer he is, but and granted, I completely understand that for legal practices, chances are I would not make a decision about who my lawyer is based on a billboard that I see on the side of the road. But I will tell you, there's so many of these ads, along with like Ariana's insurance, Ariana, just looking like Ariana, and there's a value. Like with the marketer's eye, the use of that real estate is so strong in building a reputation in a city and building a brand in a city. Like, what do lawyers think about that who aren't doing that? Do you think that's like?
Well, I think it's specific to the type of area of law that you practice. And what has happened, I've been a lawyer for 25 years. You used to see a lot of generalists, people who did everything. You really don't see that anymore. People are a specialist. And the specialists that tend to post on billboards are the ones with the largest fees, which is personal injury, right? I mean, those tend to be the largest fees. So there's
I didn't know
personal
that.
Injury. Yeah, personal injury, bankruptcy, you do see. I think there's a lot of shame associated with bankruptcy, which is sad because the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States is health, right? Yeah. It's you can't, you get cancer and you exhaust your savings and then you exhaust your retirement and you can't pay your bills and then you declare bankruptcy. So it's not necessarily you're a quote bad person.
So are you saying that people who fall into this bankruptcy market, they don't go to their current network of resources, they want to go outside of the network?
Well, I wouldn't want to ask any of my friends who's a good bankruptcy attorney,
right?
Because there's a little bit of shame. And then personal injury, the money's frankly big. So many lawyers will charge what's called a contingency fee arrangement.
Right.
So there's no recovery. There's no fee unless there's a recovery. And some of these recoveries can be $1 million, right? And so the attorney's going to get, oftentimes it's 1/3 of the recovery. Sometimes a consumer can get a discount to 25%. And then if you go into litigation, the percentage is higher.
See, I always looked at it from, okay, so that's inside knowledge that I didn't have. I always thought, and tell me if this is, if this also applies. I always thought it has to do with the largest consumer base that exists. Mm-hmm. Because it's a broad medium, out of home, anyone who drives by. I figured there's you have the largest opportunity to reach. You have an opportunity to reach the most humans who are quite likely, it's like buying an ad on the homepage of Yahoo. There's a lot of people that used to be. There's a lot of people who are on the homepage of Yahoo, and maybe a quarter of them are going to be my customer. But do you feel like the customer base is it seems like you might disagree that you have a large potential customer base there.
Well, what's interesting is if you drive on a freeway by a billboard, and I don't know if there's been a study of this, I think most of those plaintiff's personal injury billboards are not on the freeway.
They're on the road. Like I live in Lake Balboa.
Yeah, they're not on the freeway, they're on the road. And here's why. And they're oftentimes at really big intersections. If I were a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer and I had a limited amount of money to spend, which most people, their funds are limited, I would find out where the most accidents were on each intersection. I would then look at the billboards, the billboard availability and the price, and I would put it out on a spreadsheet and some type of matrix, and I would figure out which intersection has the most injury accidents, right? And which is the cheapest. Because I think those billboards are on city streets because people literally get in an accident and they're sitting there. If you get in an injury accident, have you been in an injury accident? Yeah. Okay. You're there for a while.
Right.
And you got your cell phone and you start hurting and you go, oh man, that guy really rear-ended me. And you look up and you see the billboard. Well,
Sweet James.
That's right.
So that's really interesting. Like I would actually take that exact strategy and deploy it for your business.
Oh, fantastic.
How old are your customers? What's the demographic? Maybe it's not age, but what's the key demographic?
Well,
for your customers?
our ideal customer is a woman, age 55, with children, who's married.
Yep.
And so she has parents living, and her spouse has parents living, who is a homeowner and investable assets of $2 million and above. Now we call her Carol. Now Carol is our ideal client, and for those people who are listening, whether you're a lawyer or a dentist or whatever, you need to think about your ideal client and you need to name that person. That's a really, really important exercise for us, right? So that you can visualize that person, and that helps with your overall marketing and branding strategy. If you don't have that clarity, if you say, oh, well, we're for everyone, then you're, as they say, if you're for everyone, then you're for no one. So you really need to drill down.
Yeah, I think the challenge for a lot of brands, and I'm not commenting on yours specifically because I don't know too much about your business, but I think that nurture and brand are the two things that companies should be valuing more that they don't understand yet is critically important.
Yeah, and when I started this journey of building our law firm from, in the last 8 years, we've increased our revenue 7-fold.
Oof.
We've increased the number of employees 7-fold. I kind of poo-pooed the concept of branding, and I think it's becoming more important. Not so much like, yay, I'm a brand and everyone's going to recognize me like, some big brand like Apple or Nike or something, but it's more internal where you need to get it straight in your head that if you're going to be spending marketing dollars and you're going to be pushing content out into the ether, you really need to think about who you are, what you're doing, who you're serving, and that's all part of branding. So it's much more of an internal, in my view, an internal process versus an external process. Because if you don't get it right in your own head and you're not clear with the people that you're engaging with who are going to help you market, I kind of think you run the risk of wasting a lot of money.
Now, speaking to the head of marketing at Wave.video, his name is Daniel, and he was, partially because they're a video platform, certainly they have to do this almost to just eat their own dinner, but like a lot of their marketing efforts are on the top of the funnel. It's a lot of content development to catch anyone who might be remotely interested, and then it's just nurture, just a lot of repetitive pumping the client, the prospect with information, with advertising, with communications, all this stuff to kind of capture the user when they're ready to convert. And they were saying, Daniel was saying that the average customer turns on the trial within 2 hours of seeing the ad.
Wow.
But the colder the audience, the less they've interacted with the business in the past is an indicator of their likelihood to then cancel the trial or not turn into a paid customer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about my customer journey attending this conference, the Social Media Marketing World Conference. And it started with, I looked at an email, then I listened to a podcast, and then I came back to the podcast and I saw the email again, and it started out at a low price and the price kept going up and up and up. And then finally, I buy and I'm here with Nick, and so I'm on that receiving end. But there was an engagement, and the customer journey, I think as time goes by, the customer journey is getting longer. So and this is really hard for people. I'm 50, and it was not like this 25 years ago. And I don't know, it must be hard for other people too, who are kind of mid-career. It's really kind of frustrating, frankly, when the prospect is not as far along in the journey as they used to be when they initially reach out to you. So I think that's just kind of a broad trend. Unless you have another opinion on that, it just seems like that's the way it's going.
Supported. There's a Think with Google study that shows that the average consumer, and again, it varies by vertical, but needs 20 to 200 consumer touch points before they make a purchase. And it's not all advertising, although it could be.
Right.
It's about the email. It's about the social media. It's about Facebook groups are really interesting. Like there's really ways to cultivate. It just like I'm really like excited about brand and nurture, which is really interesting to me because most of our business we're driving return on ad spend, like full on. One of our clients, they're a restaurant, and for every $1 we're spending, we're turning into $20 in receipts.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
That's great.
But I think the campaigns that don't work, like we have another client that sells a consumable product and no one knows who the brand is. And because they don't know who the brand is, they don't know that they keep seeing the same message because the messaging is all varied.
Right.
And then further, they don't buy when they get to the landing page. It's like,
right.
Yeah, because I don't know who you are. Like, romance me a little bit. Like, let me give you some information about who I am so you can make a decision. You nurture the person, and then finally, when they're ready to buy, because they keep there's going to be a point that the message sticks, it clicks, it snaps into place, and that's the moment you have the customer. But if you don't go long enough to lead the person down that path, they're going to buy your product, except they're going to buy it from your competitor because they branded themselves.
And I think you also need to be mindful of the essentially the nominal purchase price of your product. In Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1, have you read that book?
I've listened to it.
There's a section in the book that I don't quite have memorized, but for those of you who have not heard or read the book, from $1 to $1,000, there isn't a lot of human interaction. It's limited human interaction. People will buy something under $100 and they'll just buy it. Between 100 and a 1,000, they might need a little more, a little more loving, so to speak. For 10,000 and up, if the purchase price is 10,000 and up, you can afford a professional sales force. And if your price point is $1,000 to $10,000, you need a human involved in the transaction. The problem is, and it's a math problem, the problem is you're not generating enough revenue to cover a professional sales person. And so the problem with having an offering of $1,000 to $10,000 is you're in the dead zone. And he calls it the dead zone because it's not enough to provide that professional sales support, but it's too much for people to buy without a human interaction. Unfortunately, our average price for an estate plan is about $3,800. So when we look at all the estate plans we do, right? So some are more, some are less, and by the way, that's kind of the going rate in LA. And if you kind of average everyone out, reputable people, probably higher in Century City, but there's a range, but hardly anyone's going over 10. This is for foundational basics, sort of getting the basics done, the essential stuff done. And for us, it's a real problem. And I'm just speaking totally frankly and candidly, and this is something we struggle with. And we're not the only ones who struggle with this. So it's a tough one. So
we're rolling out a marketing. So in the same vein, we're rolling out a marketing package that we're in beta. It's all under Brill Media. We're calling it spot on marketing, where we're moving away from advertising services as a foundational element to marketing service. Build a landing page, create an email drip campaign, write 9 social media posts a month, and run paid media primarily on Facebook and Instagram. And what the customer is paying for is the strategy. You don't have to do anything else, but you're paying $1,500 a month for our thinking, and everything else comes free, added value, whatever you want to call it. And so I was on the phone today with my partner after a sales call, and the key thing that's rattling around in my head is we have to be McDonald's. I don't need to be on the sales call. My partner doesn't need to be on the sales call once it's honed. What we need are a bunch of kids. I say kids, I mean like 25, 30, just age doesn't really matter. The point is you don't have to be the top of your sales game. You just got to know how to communicate the 5 or 10 key points and overcome objections before they even become a thing. And you're McDonald's. You know what a cheeseburger is. You can taste a cheeseburger as I say it.
Yeah.
Because you know what a McDonald's cheeseburger tastes like. That's what we are. And the only way that we can possibly succeed in that business model, our goal is 1,000 clients paying us $1,500 a month. The only way we succeed on that is if we're McDonald's.
Yeah, you have to have your process down. What's how long do people stick with you at $1,500 a month? How many months?
We've only been doing this for 1 month.
Okay. So another very important exercise is what is the lifetime value of a client?
Right.
So Starbucks, this is what I've heard, Starbucks will pay $100 to get you addicted to Starbucks.
Yeah.
That's what they're willing to pay. We just went to Starbucks at a hotel and paid $16 for 2 lattes. Now it's one of those Starbucks in a hotel that is not really Starbucks. It's really owned by the hotel, but I'm like, $16 for 2 lattes. You gotta be kidding me, but we're addicted to Starbucks.
I didn't realize it's $100, but if it's $100 cost per acquisition, our lifetime value must be like, I'm sure I've spent probably $10,000 at Starbucks over the last decade.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah. And so I think for people who are in business, you really should consider thinking about all of the things that you can, in adding value to your client relationship, all the things that you can sell to your client, I guess, but all the things that they're willing to buy, and then add that up over their lifetime, and you can use a discount to the present day value, right? So if you're going to sell $100 a month into the future, that's not worth all those months times 100 today because future dollars are cheaper and all of that.
Sure.
But that's really something to think about, because if you can serve one, and that's why Carol, who's 55, is our ideal client. We don't an 85-year-old is not our ideal client.
Got it.
Because their parents are deceased.
So Carol at 55 ends up coming. You build a lifelong customer with her.
Correct.
Oh, fascinating.
And we pick up her in-laws and her parents, and then her kids as she ages. The kids will come back in because she's aging. And as you age, many times, for those of you who have an estate plan, a living trust, when you get old, things change, or as you age, things change. And many people redo their estate plan essentially on a periodic basis. Whatever the period is obviously unique, but the situation does change. And so people they do rewrite their estate plans. Well, the average estate plan in the United States is 17 years old. Which is kind of scary. Do
you do YouTube? I was really inspired by the plumber. I forgot his name.
We are on YouTube. Yeah. And actually I ran into him in the hall. He's a really nice guy, and really happy to share information. We do have a YouTube channel. It's a Cunningham Legal YouTube channel, and we do webinars, and those are surprisingly getting, one's out for 5 months and it's got 170 views. But what I'm hearing in talking to people is they say, oh, I saw that webinar and I came to see you. So I think there is value in doing it. And I'm not getting hung up on the number of, if somebody's out there and they say, oh yeah, you guys mentioned the YouTube videos and I put it out there and it only got 80 views. Well, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing a high value thing, it might be worth it.
Absolutely. So let's go take a turn to Media Hook. Right? Yep. Media Hook? Okay, so Media Hook sounds like a really interesting idea. Tell us the thesis and the premise of it.
So the idea of Media Hook is essentially independent content creation outside of marketing agencies for professional businesses. We feel there's a big gap in the $1 to $3 million revenue range, where you can't quite go to a national marketing agency, but you have money that you want to invest into your creative storytelling for your brand. And we're based in Los Angeles, and there's such a huge community of creative people, audio, video, to make everything happen. So we're looking to start locally and move nationally after that.
So, I mean, what's interesting to me, there's a dual marketplace, right? Like you're serving professional services customers. You're carving out an opportunity for them to reach their customers in a sustainable way without breaking the bank. And secondly, you're giving a really awesome opportunity to the traditional type of creators that existed before, YouTubers. And you're giving them an opportunity to access potentially something that could change the course of their career, right? If they hit the right commercial or they create the right content or meet the right people. Like, so you actually are playing a benefit to really both sides of the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about it because, first of all, Nick is my son, and so we're doing this together, which is a really cool thing, and it makes me really happy to do something with my son. And I know you have a little one.
I do. He's 14 months. He's amazing.
He's a prop, right? I mean, you'll put him in the video. He's not a.
I've tried that. I didn't use it, but I totally did that like 6 months ago.
Well, Nick is a professional musician, and he does sync work, and he can explain this better than I can. But basically, there's an explosion of content. And you've got Netflix, and then we saw this morning Disney, and what was the other one? Disney and...
I mean, there's Hulu.
Hulu, but there's Disney and... Anyway. And what's interesting, I didn't realize this. Disney said the most important thing in Disney for the Disney company going forward is Disney Plus. More important than parks, more important than movies. Oh my God, more important than Star Wars. Kill me now, right? But Disney Plus is the most important platform. So what I foresee is an explosion in demand for content. Now, one thing that your listeners should be very mindful of is you cannot take a recorded song and put that on your podcast or put it on your YouTube. Mm-hmm. It is literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages, and they will come after you. Yeah, it's a total fact. So what Nick's been working on lately is what's called sync work, where if you're doing a show on Netflix, you say, I need 3 minutes of beachy sounding music from the 60s. That's original. Yeah. And then they put that out, they bid it. There's no yet marketplace for that where they've digitized the marketplace, but I think someone's going to come up with that. But the other thing is that Nick, wow. You know, for those of you who are in LA and maybe in the creative arts, sometimes you kind of feel like you're selling your soul, right? Yeah. A little bit. And our hope is that this platform and this community that we can hopefully build is going to be really a more meaningful work.
So a couple things. So basically I can go to you and say I need kind of like cool sounding edgy hip hop for my podcast intro, and you or someone from the network will develop the content, the audio that I can use, that I have the permissions, maybe not exclusive rights to, but I have the permissions for it.
Yeah, that's. I think our focus moving forward is video content and podcasting, and the combination of the two. I've seen so much growth over the last few years in the podcast space and in video, and the hope is to start there and grow into different aspects of creative media.
Yeah, it's like an elevated version of Upwork. So instead of someone in India for 15 cents writing a song, you actually are employing somebody in the United States, and it's
quality. I mean, look, the quality has to be there. So if there's no good answer to this, and it depends on like several variables, tell me, but like, what would I end up paying for a custom audio sound for my podcast?
Well, we haven't thought out individual pricing, but the hope is that we can come in as creative collaborators for a monthly fee. That's in the few $1,000 range, where we can take your business and your vision for what you want your brand to be, and give you all the creative content to make that happen.
So that's interesting. I like that a lot. You know, there's what I hear is also some similarity to like 99 Designs and Design Crowd.
Yeah.
So these are, but it's not for audio. It's not for this type of production. It's for like, I need graphics or I need a logo. Like I could spend $150 and get a logo in like 3 days. It's not the best logo ever, but literally the logo I'm using for my business. Paid $100 for it. Took me a week. It works.
Yeah, and I think this what really drove this is a demand that I saw in the law firm, which is I really need to have an 8-part audio series that goes out to the beneficiary of a trust. So mom and dad die, and the brother is the trustee, and the sister is the beneficiary, meaning the sister is going to inherit. And she keeps calling our office saying, when am I getting my money? And what we can say is, why don't you watch this 8-part YouTube series or video and call me if you have any questions. So if for any lawyers listening out there, you're like, oh my gosh, how can I get that? Because frankly, it's very difficult to charge your client for somebody complaining for a half hour. That's a beneficiary. Clients don't like to pay for that. They say, my sister's annoying. That's not my problem. I'm not paying for it. And I think there's some merit to that.
Sure.
So if we can have a ready to go, and this would be really across the United States, but a ready to go offering. Now, the most important element of this, and it's something you touched on, is strategy. Mm-hmm. It's not the technology. It's not we just need to get out there and do it. You really have to have a significant, mindful approach to this, and then kind of create an outline, a wireframe of what you want to talk about. And I think that is what is lacking in the marketplace. Yeah. So slightly elevated.
I love this. Okay, so when is Media Hook? What's the timing for Media Hook for people to start getting access and whatnot?
Well, I think we have a domain, Media Hook LLC. I don't know, but you can go to. I don't know. We just started the company last week.
It's a good idea. It's a great idea. Very cool.
We're at proof of concept stage.
I love it. So guys, how can people find you, both of you?
You can go to Cunningham Legal and find me, www.cunninghamlegal.com.
And I'm on Instagram at Nickelbach, Nickelbach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Jim Cunningham, Nick Cunningham.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.